6. Brašno. Гъсто е. Вода. Сега пожълтява и изчезва влагата. Вече е готово да се обърне. И ми обръщам.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Nasedyanka, the channel where I talk about Bulgarian culture, history, tradition and faith. So today I will continue to discuss Bulgarian clothing. The topic is going to be specifically on the embroidery and its symbolic meaning. So bear with me, this may take a couple of parts as usually it all happens. So I have arranged under dresses, which we call long shirts. These are the cotton white dresses. One of them is not. This here is a sukman dress. It's an overall, like an apron dress or the pinafore dress. But I've arranged those because they come in different embroidery. So I wanted to show you an example of some of those. And as we go, maybe you might be able to recognize some of the discussed symbols here in this video. So, in general, the Bulgarian clothes, nusi, are saturated with rich history, diversity, spirituality, and depth, both that impress other people and they inspire with the complexity of their patterns, more so the geometrical figures. These come from antiquity. These are not some kind of several century old symbols. These come from thousands of years back. Their meaning, complexity, level of difficulty, and interpretation are becoming more and more the focus of attention and the topic of conversation of researchers as they awake the curiosity of our modern day people, which is not a bad thing. They preserve the self-consciousness and identity of the Bulgarians as a nation, also our identity as individuals. Those are the clothes and our embroideries on them that contain knowledge. On top of that, it's advanced knowledge and understanding of the universe, of cosmos, of the mastery of humans and their knowledge, human potential, depth of spirituality. All in all of the dimensions of existence and creativity, basically they are not only beautiful and colorful. That's not just superstitiously something, colorful out there. They actually are preserving the depth of our human legacy. They show a person's social status. They can show a person's level of advancement in terms of intelligence and family legacy. But again, they contain knowledge from our ancestors about how the stars were situated, about what the cycles of nature were. This is not something that an illiterate people can compose, right? So it's we call it sometimes a script. Some of the patterns of this embroidery that you may see will include, and I'll talk now about some of the different symbols. Okay, so one of those is the babini zubi. What this actually stands for is grandma's teeth. Now, when I was a kid, my uncle, may God rest his soul, he used to play this game with me. We would cross fingers and then we would tickle or like play with each other, and I would go and bite his fingers and he would bite my fingers. And that was just a little kid's game. I was probably 3 years old. This is what we would call the teeth. And later on in my life, Toblerone chocolate came out to be popular, so I used to call it the tooth or the teeth chocolate. Okay, this is something that you'll actually see on our clothes. I don't have the piece of, how can I say, a canvas or a pillowcase that I have at home. I'm still traveling, but I can show you something similar. It's just in a smaller version. There are triangles right here. So imagine if these triangles were one within another, following up by other triangles, other triangles, other triangles, and they can be in different colors. That would be a good example of grandma's teeth pattern. It is one of the most popular patterns of embroidery in Bulgaria. It's found in many traditional textiles, such as our carpets, our pillowcases, our tablecloths, handkerchiefs. But again, here's an example. It consists of a number of small triangles, like I just mentioned, that are placed side by side that resemble teeth. The colors used usually include red, black, and white. So classically, I just showed you there. Another popular pattern is the rose. It is handmade, textile, decorative, usually found on the long shirts. Again, these are the long shirts, right? On fabrics, textile, and tablecloths. It comes in vibrant colors such as reds, pinks, yellows. Roses are usually placed against a background of green leaves so that they can stand out. And again, it's just basically they symbolize nature and our gardens. There is also the symbol of the cuckoo bird, or you may find symbols that represent buildings, symbols that represent the grape or the grapevines. In general, the Bulgarian embroidery continues to inspire young designers who include them in their collections, helping to preserve in this way our traditional heritage and also to present it to the world. Now, if you have watched my previous episodes, you might also remember, and if you haven't watched them, feel free to refer back to them. But I spoke in many previous episodes about Bulgarians in antiquity. And some of those episodes are including information about the Native Americans who also are preserving our Bulgarian original geometrical figures. Go figure. It's just interesting to be mindful of this as you explore human history and genealogy. There are also specific patterns, specific traditional Bulgarian patterns that stand for wedding rituals, for betrothal and engagements, for the sowing of the seeds. So depending on the cycles of nature, when it is the season to sow, we have those patterns. Also for the harvest, for protection. There is a pagan belief that some symbols also stand for the mother goddess. Now, I will defy that, and I'm not very sure that it's the correct interpretation. True, there were pagan Bulgarians in ancient times before Christianity, and most of them very easily accepted Christianity because they found the truth in the religion, the highest of human potential and knowledge. And so many of them were actually corrected, but many of them just easily translated into Christian terminology, and I'll mention some of them here. So bear with me. Those embroideries also include the directions of the world. Also the female and male symbolism or beginning, like we would say. There are two distinguished genders, male and female, sex types, male and female. That's also in Chinese medicine. That's also in Ayurveda. This is in a lot of ancient, I'm not speaking about our earthly presentation here. I'm speaking about how our energy manifests. There are also embroideries that are stylized in the symbol of suns, or like the solar system, basically. Common geometrical compositions are also found in those. They include the circle, the triangle, usually that will be placed around the neck. And I think, yep, that's what you see here. Again, these are little triangles around the neck, right here. The neck line, but also this. can see the triangles out here as well, along the neckline. And so there are also squares and rectangles, polygons, rhombus figures, rosettes, or the Rosetta figure, stars, as well as interrupted or kind of like broken lines. So all of these are related to the knowledge of geometry, again, the cosmos, and the way patterns go naturally happen in nature. Located mainly along the edges of the clothes. So in one or two videos ago, I mentioned that they're around the neckline, also the corners of the sleeves. Now I'm wearing my warmers here, but that would be along the edges of the clothes right here. So let me show you what I'm talking about, like right here. You can see along the edges of the sleeves, and also right here on the bottom of the skirts. So on top of everything that we've mentioned so far, the specific thread of yarn matters. So the yarn is usually made of woolen threads. Even their making by hand, of course, is symbolic, and it takes a long and complex process. So the procedure takes 8 or 9 steps basically. So I wrote them down to kind of go, you know, one after another. First, you have to select your wool, right? You have to shear the sheep. You have to select what kind of wool you want to use. Second, you have to wash it in warm water, and basically then you have to beat it, kind of like beat the damp wool with a stick. We call that chepkane. It's kind of like when you are separating the impurities, the dirt from the wool. Fourth, you then take the wool into the so-called, we call it greben edinak, which in English would be like the lone comb, I guess. The point here is so as to render it into smaller chunks, smaller pieces, until the fibers are arranged, how can I say, parallel-wise. So they become smoother and smoother to comb, right? The fifth step is the dyeing process, and Bulgarians would always use natural dyes derived from nature, right? So the resources would be natural. After that, step 6 includes what we call stiptsovane. This is the astringing process of the dyeing of the colors of the fibers, the woolen fibers. The 7th step is rinsing it, and the 8th step is drying it. Someday, God willing, I would love to demonstrate this, but right now, given all my situation, how I work at a full-time job and I travel so frequently, and I live in a very tiny, small little space, that would be very hard for me to achieve. That's why I am currently buying my products, and I cannot afford making them yet. So one of the most common and important symbols is the floral one. An example of this is the tree of life. It's one of the oldest and most mystical elements in the lifestyle of the Bulgarian. It represented the 3 worlds that our ancestors believed in, and you can notice how easily that translates to Christianity. For example, my cross that I wear includes Christ on the cross, Christ's head representing him, the sovereign creator. It also has Christ included symbol beneath his feet. Now I have a saint, Saint George. I have the Holy Trinity here, Saint John and the Mother of God, and Saint Alexander Nevsky. But I wanted to show you something about at the very bottom of our Orthodox Christian crosses. We all include the fact that Christ descended into hell, and hell could not contain him, therefore hell burst. And this is an important piece of orthodoxy that most Protestants in the West tend to omit for some unknown to me reasons, which is very superficial, I want to say superficial, and I don't want to get into details with this, but I'm saying this here because our ancestors, way before the Christianization, they were already prepared with this knowledge, but their understanding of heaven, earth, and the underworld was connected to the tree, the symbol of tree. So, and as you think, Christ was crucified on a tree. The cross was made from a tree. It's wooden. So all of these symbols are very important to us. So yes, you can see symbols of trees, and they can look like this. Let me show you. So the sukman, for dress, has little trees right here. The bottom of it, same thing, right there. So, but they can come in different shapes and forms. Sometimes they look like this, like that. It's just a little sprouting tree. And then right here, same thing. So the longer tree figures can be easily caught. So when you think of a tree, it is composed of three parts, main parts. It has its root system, which our ancestors would associate with the underworld. It has its trunk system, which they would associate with earth. That's the world of people and animals. And it has its crown. Every tree has a crown. That's what they would associate symbolically, right? They didn't believe that that was it. They just, it's a representation. It's a creative way to represent three dimensions of existence. And that third dimension is the realm of God, the angels, and some of them would say the birds, the entities that would fly in the air, the good. So it represents the eternal symbol of the circle of life. Its composition may include also flowers, leaves, big fruits, and so forth and so forth. So the ancient Bulgarians easily recognized and accepted Christianity. Our ancestors' spirituality was so deep and so well ingrained with the knowledge of nature, science, the cosmos. Again, the most accurate calendar in the world, UNESCO recognized, is the Bulgarian calendar. So they naturally perceived the world through the lenses of this multidimensional knowledge, which helped them also accept Orthodox Christianity later, because Orthodox Christianity ultimately is the fullness of the faith. You can research it. You can look my other videos where I talk as much as I can about this topic. So here we're going to proceed to talk a little bit about the grapevine, which is also a very commonly present symbol in the Bulgarian Nusi. So it is associated with the abundance, with fruitfulness and peace and love. Now these are again symbols, right? They simply look at that symbolically. Now I want to draw your attention to something. The word in Bulgarian language that we use for fruitfulness, in English, I was so frustrated, you guys, trying to translate this. The dictionary in English would consistently try to force me into using the word fertility. And I was very upset about it because that's not what our pludorodie means. Plod means fruit. Rod is family. Rodie also is related to the root for giving birth, to birth forward. In other words, the grapevine is associated with giving forth fruit. And if you think about Christianity, that's exactly what we are all called to do, to cultivate and give forth the fruits of the Holy Spirit, where we can recognize righteous, correct people in the fullness of the faith by their fruits. You can check out the Bible. So the grapevine is also one of the most important symbols in Bulgaria, in our Orthodox Christianity, as well as so is also the idea of the circle or the cycle. Since ancient times, vine and wine were symbols of youth, fertility, fruitfulness, and longevity. Yeah, I feel like I have to make another side note here. Those three words are very tricky. I've been living in the West for a long time, almost 25 years. And it's very upsetting to me. So let me go in depth with those. Number one, youth. I notice in our modern spirit, this Western society, bringing, how can I say, an emphasis on youth, as if youth, we should remain youthful, as if we should be preserving a teen-like spirit. Our bodies should never evolve. They should look very thin and sexy, and people should be impulsive. And truth be told, when I have even friends who have visited from Bulgaria, they have expressed to me how strange it is that Westerners are wearing, those teen-looking like clothes, and they are in an advanced age. That's not a judgment, it's an observation. It upsets me though, because when we try to translate deep spirituality, that's where you can fall into pitfalls and miss a lot of the depth of what this is supposed to mean. In Bulgaria, our ancestors had a completely different view of youth. By youth, they would refer to the spirit of a, how can I say, childlike spirit. Just like Christ says, become like children, so that we may enter the kingdom of heaven. It's almost like blank slate. It really means like you should be practicing or cultivating a spirit of genuineness and authenticity, being as genuine and authentic, not full of ourselves, thinking that we know everything, but innocent in that way. Innocent doesn't mean that you should never have made wrong, but it means, again, knowing that we don't know everything. It means humility. So this is what youth is referring to in our spirituality. And then, number 2, the word plodorodie. Again, many modern people, and nowadays it's, I say West, modern, it's met, I can see this everywhere in the East and the West. This is like the modern spirit. I call it the spirit of superficiality. But this word is often twisted and perverted so as to mean fertility, as if some kind of a male-female tantric explosive connection has to happen. Well, let me tell you, that is not at all, again, what our ancestors and what our Christianity is discussing. The depth of our Christian spiritual beliefs, as well as our Bulgarian ancestors' understanding here, refers to plodorodie, the giving forth of fruit. That means that every single decision that we make, every single action that we take, including the action of non-action, that's a choice. When we choose to be inactive, time goes by and we're still taking the action of no action. It means that there is going to be a consequence. And when this consequence is based on a healthy perspective, of a holistic perspective, we call it the well-being, the holistic existence, then our actions will be, how can I say, in the form of healthy fruits. So if they are twisted and perverted, they're going to be spoiled fruits, which we don't eat, right? We can't consume them. So when you bear forth a fruit that's healthy, you can actually consume the consequences of your own actions. So these clothes are inspiring a deep level of meta thinking, of nurturing consciousness, nurturing a spirit of self-questioning in terms of cultivating human growth and how can I say again, conscientiousness, empathy, care, humanity. Okay. The third word here refers to longevity. So dolguletie, in fact, dolog, it comes from the word long. Letie is years, many years. So in fact, in the Orthodox Christian Church, we regularly are singing many years. God grant you many years to people who are traveling, people who are celebrating anniversaries or commemorating their patron saints, or just people who need a blessing. So do we, Bulgarians, as Orthodox Christians, refer to this word here as a blessing that God may grant many years. So when we talk about longevity, I've noticed in the Western modern spirit, there is this twisted tendency to attempt to quote unquote make the best we can for the life that we live here on earth. So eat, consume, celebrate, party as much as you can for as long as you're living, right? That's not at all the Bulgarian way of seeing it. It's not the Orthodox way. It's not the Bulgarian ancestral way of seeing it. Our way of seeing it is that life continues beyond this earthly life. And God may grant us many years as a blessing because those years count toward our cultivation. Just like a flower needs time to grow, you need to nurture it, it needs sun, it needs water, it needs nutrients so that it may get grounded, grow bigger roots, and then grow upwards. So are we humans growing spiritually and holistically. So this motif is present, or this pattern is present pretty much everywhere in the Bulgarian lifestyle, everyday objects, our culture and art. So you may see it in our houses, our backyards, our vineyards. As a matter of fact, I'm filming this place at a place where my grandfather hand built together with my dad this trellis, and it's gorgeous. It is quite long. We have a little corner with benches on one side. We have this empty space where I am filming this place. Then we have another corner, like a little room. And my dad has grown vines. This is one of the vines. It's right now the season of autumn, right? And we're entering winter, so they have all dried up. But in the summer, the vines will turn green again, and they will give the fruit of grapes. So this is very traditional. When my grandparents came here, we were like, we cannot live in a foreign country and not bring this persistent, constant symbol of Bulgarianism, of Bulgaria, with us. So when you go to a Bulgarian house, it's very common that you will be invited outdoors at a bench around the table under we call it asmata. This is, how can I say in English? Under the umbrella from the grapevines, or under I guess that's what you would say in English, Of course, in Bulgaria, they've been grown for many generations, and usually the grapes are just so thick, they really guard you in the summer from the heavy sun, and it's just beautiful. It smells beautiful, it looks beautiful, and it's outdoors, and we are nurturing each other, connecting with each other, and also honoring nature in that way, which is the creation of our creator. So that's an example of communion. And I'm speaking of a smaller scale communion. Of course, we Orthodox are also called to participate in the church in order to partake of Holy Communion. And this is an example of our smaller church life. So basically, the Bulgarian culture is based on this understanding that there are worlds. The world exists in a smaller scale, then bigger scale. We can bring the church geometrically. You can imagine geometrical figures like a circle within a circle within a circle. We have the bigger church, and then we bring that church within our families, within our, our communities, and then our families, and then internally, individually. So that's how our circle is replicated pattern-wise. Well, going back to the close, we are replicating different patterns depending on what we associate them with and what we want to tell people. Let's talk a little bit about the sign of the, how can I translate that, the tulip, or the three-leaf palmetto, or palmet, the three-leaf palm. I'm trying to see if I have some of those. Some of them look like it. I'll include also pictures and links to pictures that you guys can see. So look into the description section. You can click on the article that I'm using for this information here so that you can see more pictures. But it basically looks like the English I letter, kind of like a little line, and then like Y, and then another line. And so I'm looking, if in case I'm not seeing it, some of them really do look like those. But yeah, I'll include those in the description section. I could not have brought every single thing with myself in a few bags on my road trip. But nonetheless, this three-leaf palmet again, it's a symbol of fruitfulness, and it can be found almost everywhere in the Bulgarian lifestyle, in the lifestyle of our ancestors. It can be seen on their fortress walls. It's been carved into rocks. It has been depicted on flags, as well as everyday objects that we use, as well as ritual breads, and many, many other places. We also have sometimes animal symbols. These are also referred to as zomophoric images. Among the oldest symbols, those are actually associated with hunting and subsistence. In other words, survival. We Bulgarians eat a mixture of a diet that is based on plants as well as animal products. We are not shy of eating the meat as well as the organs. We do not shy away from these things. I know in the West people have looked at me with a lot of different faces, and it's been a struggle with all this, I want to say, twisted and perverted way of perceiving eating organ meats as if it's some kind of a low socioeconomic status. Let me tell you this. Bulgaria has some of the oldest roots in medicine, and my family is a family of medical practitioners. I have an uncle who is a surgeon. My grandmother was a midwife. Other family members have been mechanical engineers, and veterinarians. My family is very well acquainted with the types of food, and we would all use natural sources of healing. We are familiar, just like in Chinese medicine, if you want to take it that way. I guess that's more popular in the West. We're familiar with how different organs of an animal can nurture the body in different ways. And I will disclose here to you all that my mom, for example, was diagnosed with stage 3 out of 4 cancer in the West. And the Western doctors, allopathic medical practitioners, were quite mean towards my mom. They urged her to obtain a surgery. They forced her, and they were very mean in their language, rude in a big way. My mom was a very humble person, and she was always a very positive person, so she did not react. Now, I wanted to get feisty and talk to them, but she wouldn't have let me, so I honored my mother's choices. Long story short is that my mom, nonetheless, she resisted their forceful methods of trying to coerce her into following their methods of healing. So she was able to go back to Bulgaria and meet with a holistic Bulgarian traditional medical practitioner. Now, this was a doctor who had studied and she had worked in the hospital system, so she was very aware. She was an internal medical practitioner who had left the hospital system, and then she had studied healing on a nano cellular level, nanoparticles. So she helped my mother recover completely from cancer within 4 weeks. And for those 4 weeks, at the end of the 4 weeks, my mother repeated her test by obtaining 2 CAT scans, and they proved that she was cancer-free. And for the following 3 years, she continued to maintain taking supplements, attending acupuncture practitioners, obtaining bioresonance, and she was cancer-free. I remember her telling me, even with another study that she had repeated 3 years later. The doctors, allopathic doctors, were typically speechless. And I will not dig deeper into this. I have very, very many feelings about this, but I will skip it for now, just to come back to tell you that I do not shy of eating animal as well as plant-based foods, and I can see the healing properties of them depending on the structure, condition of the person, and background, and what the individual's needs are. Now, on these embroideries, you will also find heavenly, or we call it the cosmic turtle sometimes. I don't have it actually here, do I? I don't think I have it here. But again, I'll include it in the description section. The cosmic turtle is one of the most ancient and mystical symbols dating back to the time of our ancestors. Like we call them the Proto-Bulgarians, our Huns, and again, this goes to thousands of years ago, Bulgarians. The old Bulgarians associated the cosmic turtle with their monotheistic deity, which they called Tangra or Tengri. It appears as a 3 intertwined figure eights. I have a feeling like I saw it somewhere. Oh, how about this? It's not a 3 intertwined figure eights, but if you had those intertwined together 3 times, that would be your cosmic turtle. So they actually stand as a symbol of infinity, and they depict the idea of, let's see how I can translate this word, the idea of perfection, but this is not the Western concept of perfectionism, which leads to disaster and nowhere. This refers to совершенство, the level of completion. It's a balance and a symbol of interconnectedness. Like we say взаимосвързаност, we are all interconnected. For example, a human being has 3 layers of their nervous system, sympathetic, parasympathetic, and social nervous system. An animal has their nervous system, and so forth and so forth. We have the elements, we're composed of elements. I mean, just to give you some basic ideas. So, notice how even back then, people had the consciousness to look at the world and the universe on a large and global scale, respecting and honoring higher power. And I think this is so marvelous to acknowledge here, because in the later years, most recently around 1940s, so it was in 1944, communism took over in Bulgaria by force, and communists were representing the atheist party. They were God haters, and they commonly, as I have talked in other videos, would enter churches and martyr our Christians. They have killed, shot, tortured bestially thousands of our priests and monks and Christian laity. And I will continue to talk about them. Many of them are canonized because they died for the faith. If not all of them, pretty much if they die for the, in the name of the faith, they become automatically saints. And I think this stands in contrast, stark contrast with the depth and power of understanding of our ancestors versus the more modern, I call it superficial, because this is what communism did was it attempted at cutting our roots, desiccating the depths of our knowledge, again obliterating our identity. And this is not just communism. This happened again with the Ottoman Empire during the 5 centuries of their invasion. It happened also centuries before with other empires. It also happens nowadays with modern people. There's nothing new under the blue sky, you guys. But it's good to think. I think the bottom line here is there is a little stick fell here. Thank you for donating this little stick. This little grapevine is greeting us here. Yep. I think the bottom line here is that we should be conscientious and really not take things for granted, and don't just go and trust blindly in the culture around. Use your heads, use your brains. That's all I can say so far. So another figure that we use for embroidery is the, let's say how to call it, the little rooster or the cockerel. This is a much loved symbol in the Bulgarian tradition. I do not have it here, but I've seen it in books and embroidery patterns. It's loaded with different interpretations, meanings, associations, and so forth, depending on the situation or on the occasion. So sometimes the little rooster embodies the idea of the masculine and feminine beginning, as well as it's a symbol of productivity, again, fruitfulness, bearing forth consequences, creativity, that kind of stuff. Now, it can also be used in wedding rituals, so the clothes may be embroidered in that, or the handkerchief may be embroidered in that. As a side note, Bulgarian weddings are extremely rich in symbolism. I can talk to you some days about this because it has evoked lots of questions and excitement among many of my dear friends in the West. And I realized that many of those are just, there's no way, they're not known in the West, right? But I'll give you one clue. Frequently when a bride and a groom are getting married in Bulgaria, somebody in the family will embroider a handkerchief. It's made from fine, very thin, soft cotton, and they'll embroider it in whatever embroidery they wish. But speaking of the cockerel, that's a very common symbol to use at weddings. And then the father of the bride, or the one who is giving the bride, so to speak, will hold the main corner of this handkerchief, which has been folded so as to make the shape of a triangle. Then the bride holds the one corner on the back, and the groom holds the other corner on the back. In this way, the father of the house is taking the bride and the groom outside of the house, symbolically giving his daughter in the hands of the groom. And then the two of them proceed to the church ritual and so forth. I'll talk to you someday about this, God willing. So people also associated roosters with like the armor or a sense of a defense, like protection, as some of them believed that at the crowing of the first roosters in the morning, evil creatures or evil energies and spirits were driven away. Again, this comes from our ancestors, but when you think about what roosters do, is they sense the first rays of light, and they are the first creatures to wake us up. And yes, I grew up in Bulgaria, where in the village zones I would hear the roosters. In the vineyards I would hear the roosters. I miss the sound of the rooster. I'm laughing here because recently I visited my dad's house in America, and he lives in a place where he's not allowed to have chickens, and that's been a huge regret of mine. But as I entered his house, I heard a rooster, and all of a sudden I was so excited. I thought to myself, maybe all along I didn't realize, maybe they changed the rules. Maybe in America, there is some leeway, or who knows what. So I told my dad, and he said, calm down. He said, it's our neighbors who bought a machine-operated clock that is basically making the rooster sounds. I was so disappointed. I could not laugh at this ridiculousness. It makes no sense, you guys. It just makes no sense to live such a sterile life and really avoid nature to such a degree. We are created to live hand in hand with nature. So the rooster symbolizes the ever-growing or ever self-reproducing life, like the cycles of nature. We call this воспроизвеждащия се живот. On a larger scale, beyond this limited, fleshly, earthly based and oriented dimension of life that we are accustomed to seeing, right? I'm not just speaking about our fleshly, human, tiny little brains and the way we see life. The rooster is a symbol that, with or without us, after 100 years, after 1,000 years, nature is going to reproduce itself again. Life is going to resume again. Whether you love or hate nature, whether you stay stuck in front of a television screen, or you literally go out and honor the life that has been given to you in a natural way, your choices are your choices, but nature is going to continue to exist. Whether people try to destroy nature, they're not more powerful than nature. As a matter of fact, at some point nature bursts out and takes thousands of lives into herself, so to speak. So that's what our rooster symbol stands for. Also, if a girl feels ready to settle down, to begin her own home life, she may actually embroider roosters on her clothes, more often on her bosom as well as on her skirts. That gives a clue to young men or men out there that she is interested in starting a family. On the other hand, the embroidery of the peacock, for example, another bird, right, that's very popular in Bulgaria, is actually associated with the protection over young brides. So if you're a married bride, you will wear peacocks to show that you're taken and you're not interested. And it's also, again, the symbol is, so you can be protected. But if you're unmarried and you want to get married, you want to find a partner, you go with the roosters. So You may see the rooster symbol as a standalone image or a symmetrical composition, like two roosters facing each other, and there is a plant between the two of them. This is a common pattern of embroidery characteristic of the Samokov region in Bulgaria, most often found on women's skirts and shirts, long shorts like these white shorts, right? Okay, another symbol, the bear step. Most often it is depicted on the decorations of pillows. It's believed to have healing properties and to help sick people. Now, how much do I believe that? I think that's superstition. I love to dig deeper behind why that was believed. And when I think about what a bear symbolizes, bears sleep in the winter, bears, we use, the terminology like mama bear, protective. So we have a lot of sayings in our folklore that connect the bear with protectiveness and nurturing. Let's wrap up down to here today. We will continue with discussing the solar symbols next time, the cross, the sun energy, the Elbetiza. I have prepared the swastika as it is part of Bulgarian embroidery, and again, it's very different from what our modern day culture and time tends to associate it with. I've prepared the genealogy and family legacy related symbols as well. So, as I've mentioned in the past, when you look at a person wear Bulgarian clothes, you can know about their family background. Whether they're married or unmarried, how many children they have, and on and on and on. So it is pretty chilly here. I think that it's time for me to go warm up, and it's time for you to get a little bit of a rest. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for bearing up with me, and I will see you soon. Bye bye. I hope the rest of your day and week goes well. Thank you. I stood cradlen. Unbelievable. So my dad just shared that the only downside of turshia, the Bulgarian pickled veggies, is that once you start eating, you cannot stop.